So I'm having to do everything through like chats and like email, and it takes forever. And I'm just like, hey, or I could get on the phone with somebody and we could talk through this. That would be cool too.
Yeah. Give me a human. Give me a freaking human to talk to. God, I hate it. I just was playing because I love the game. Like, and it's scary to me.
It's really easy for the game to become a job.
Blow six in his hands, whistle in his mouth.
Man, kids out there playing the game, staying out of trouble, competing. I love it.
All right, so straight off the practice field, huh? I can see, looks like you had some community members out there on the track behind you. What kind of day was today?
Making sure it's not like an opponent or something. It was good. It was intense. I mean, so we hit the whole heat index thing. So we couldn't go outside, so we're indoor. And defensive coaches can try to sit there and act like, hey, no, we're just reading our keys. And it's like, no, you're not your linebackers aren't reading a key when you're in an indoor that is not full length and not full width. It's basically inside drill. You're not reading one key.
11 on 11 inside.
Yeah, and so when you're just like, yeah, we're always a 4-4 defense in the box. What are we talking about? No, you're not, because if you are, we're throwing the ball every play. Like, I don't understand. So it's like we're trying to make IDs up front, right? Because we point everything. So it's like, oh, we point this guy. Well, I mean, coach, should I push the point? No, don't push the point, because there's still 3 other backers in the box that way. So, like, I don't know what to do. Here's what you do. Hey, easy. Full slide to the freaking left and throw the inside fade. Like, yeah. So
hey, or my personal favorite is hey, run it again, and then all of a sudden, it's like every single linebacker becomes like the fastest read guy in the world. It's like, man, you were on that key fast. You got downhill toward that hole in a hurry. Like, we don't have a cutback lane. That's crazy. It's almost like you knew we weren't going to throw it anyway.
Yeah, same thing happened to us. No, let's talk about it. Same thing happened to us. So we run a play. We're in a basically we're in a 3-by-1. Double tight end in the hip, and we go power, run it, whatever. Somebody messed up. I can't even remember what happened, and we run it again, and we end up going cover 0. The defense and they went cover 3 the play before. It's like, hey, let's just go cover 0 now. Well, it's not going to work.
It's a good check.
And now, yeah, right. And so like I'm yelling like we're gonna throw the ball if that happens. Don't worry. And because like if I don't, the offense is like, well, this is a bad play call because they don't know any better. I'm like, no, stop. Like we're not. That's not a real thing, right? They just win a 12-man box. We're not going to run power in a 12-man box. It's not going to happen. So
that's always my favorite is like it's twofold, right? Especially when you're like if you're doing like any type of like scout team setup with like young guys, JV kids. It's like, first you start talking to these guys. When are you going to really have a chance to meet with them to prep them for scout team? Well, you're not. So they get 7 minutes at the beginning of offensive practice. They're like, hey, you're going to stand here. You're going to stand here. This is how you play it. And it's probably completely foreign language from what they normally do, like in their games. And so then you got to run plays twice, especially on Mondays, because you're like, that guy's not going to be there. He doesn't exist. They're not doubling our slot because it's not man coverage. Like he's got to curl flat. Like,
yes.
And then by Wednesday, they understand that like, oh, okay, coach has scripted the first. Like that's the worst is when you get that sophomore. Oh, coach scripts the first 4 plays of team, so I know second play is always going to be sprint out to the right, so I can jump the under and get me a pick. And it's like, dude, if they do that, I'll quit. I'll turn my headset in. If that mic bumps outside the tackle box and sprints to the 10 and out and picks it off, you know what? He wins. I quit. Yeah. But hey, it's all part of the territory because as you and I both know, as someone who was prepared, like had to go to scout team meetings and do that on Tuesdays, like before like practice when I was at Baylor. And then also had to run a scout team meeting and a scout team huddle when we were at Tarleton. High stress situations on both sides.
High stress. Yep.
Like the young walk on not trying to hurt somebody, but also trying to give a good look. And then the young coach trying to run the huddle. Boy. Yeah. High stress for sure.
Yes. I feel like especially like at a Division II, and it's just like they're not going to really want to listen to you. And you're like, get in the huddle, hurry, and then you have like if you're obviously doing scout team defense, offensive coaches, hurrying you up, and it's just you're here, you're there, and it's just like you're frantic the whole time.
What is taking so long?
They don't do that, Coach. I know they don't do that. Like I don't know what to do with my hands.
especially at that level because of the bounce backs. Like I'm 2 years removed from my last playing days, and I'm coaching guys older than me.
Yes.
And trying to get, trying to say, no, hey, he's not going to do that. This 18-year-old freshman that we got from Arkansas, he's still learning what 11-man football is because
right.
he doesn't know what a bang 8. He doesn't know 10, 40 to 45 or, peel flat at the safety. He doesn't know any of that. So everybody's just got to bear with me. But that's just part of being a young coach, right? Is like,
we just got to keep our composure. Can't have anybody freak out there.
That's just part of being a young coach, though, is like you're going to be on the bad end of a screaming match. And it's not always necessarily like you're just the boiling point. It's not always necessarily your fault. It's rarely your fault. Sometimes it is. Sometimes they're deserved, but it's rarely directly your fault. But I think that create, that's a lot of the growing pains and, one of those like quote unquote rite of passages because now the people that you were in those trenches with, pulling up to the facility at 4:45 to load the golf cart up and start setting up practice, now you all have been through that experience. You take what you like, what you don't like, what you felt helped, what didn't help, and you apply it to your career as you climb the ladder, which I think is where I've found myself reflecting more on those days now. And I don't know, maybe you as well, is just, what this first year's been like. Because it's, and I've touched on it. It's never what you expect. Like there is no full preparation. No first year head coach at any level has ever finished his first season and be like, man, everything went exactly the way I expected it to. Like that conversation's never happened. You just kind of have to go in and accept the fact that like, you're going to mess something up. You're going to look back and be like, crap, I should have done this different. And you're going to accidentally piss some people off, but that's just part of the learning curve. Like now you fix your processes and you streamline the logistics and you just get better as you go along. Because if you're not looking back and going, I should have done this, like, then you're not learning, you're not growing. But as somebody that this is not your first rodeo with a first-time head coach, albeit the first one was a little different, but from an experience standpoint. But what's it been like being with a first-year head coach, being a coordinator under a first-year head coach?
Yeah, both my situations obviously have been very different from the norm. Whether it's Trent Dilfer my first time around, and then this time around it was who actually my former receiver coach when I was here the first time. He's now my head coach, and so like our relationship is great. I think in general the most important thing that any first year head coach, mind you, I've never been a head coach. I'm just speaking right now, but I think the most important thing for a head coach is to understand that you have to accept that you've never been a head coach and that you're okay getting the feedback from your employees. Because to me, the moment that you sit there and try to act like you've done it for years is the moment that you have now shut yourself off. You've now exposed yourself to your workers that you're insecure and you don't know who you are. Because like to me, and I'm going to go on a little rant, I'm sorry, but like to me, I feel like the most important thing when you're talking about a first year head coach is he knows who he is and he stands firm on that. Because a lot of first year head coaches, what I'll see is they don't know like who they are. It's like, dude, just be you, because who you are special, right? Like take things from other coaches and stuff that you learn from, but don't be those coaches, because the moment that you try to be that coach, like now you're a different coach every single day and the kids don't know who you are. Be who you are, because that's why you got the job, is because you are who you are. And so be that, and then be willing to accept the fact that you've never done it before, because now your workers are going to want to help you out. And then when you have that, welcome to co-collaboration. and now you can actually create something special.
100%. And like it's you reminding yourself that like who you are got the job. Like
Right.
unless you are the slickest oil salesman in the West, like you're the person that they hired. Something about you said, we want this guy. And you have, no matter how low the lows get, you've got to keep that in mind. And I say that from a place of being in those lows, of being in that valley and waiting to, to come back out on the other side of the mountain. And pulling, and I think that like, does everybody want the high IQ staff across the board that like, oh, well, this guy's done data analysis for this team and play, he coached in this program and he spent 5 years in the Big 12 or the SEC, blah, blah, blah. Does everybody want? Absolutely. But you also have to understand that if everybody has the exact same resume, then everybody has a almost exact same experience. And when you get that guy that spent 15 years at the junior high level, and another guy that, played Division II ball in the Midwest and then went and coached high school ball in Kansas. And you get that guy that worked in the SEC. When you get that diverse makeup of your staff, man, the perspectives and the things that they bring to the table, that's what a good head coach soaks up. Like, do I acknowledge the fact that everybody on my staff doesn't, they're not watching a game and immediately like, oh, that's power. Oh, that's, that's Y cross. That's that's fine. That's not how you watch the game. That's not how you understand the game. But that doesn't have to be the only thing you can bring to the staff. Your perspective of the kids, your perspective of community relations, your perspective of logistics. Those are the things that you can also bring to the table. So it doesn't always have to be like, oh, we've got the greatest, we've got the most NFL experience of any high school staff in the country. Cool. To a certain extent, nobody really cares. Like that might get kids in the door, but that doesn't mean that they'll stay.
Right.
And there's a relational aspect that anybody and everybody has the opportunity to bring. What you have to do as a head coach is find that balance and find those pieces to draw out of them. I went through, and I don't mean this despairingly. Like, I don't know if you ever really went through this experience because you went, boom, straight out of college, you're OC calling plays at 23 years old, which is awesome. And I didn't, and that's okay. We took two different paths and we're where we're supposed to be. And I would like to think that we're both pretty successful within the profession. But that transition from position coach on a staff to coordinator on that same staff, it's a stark difference. Your conversations are different. When you're a position coach, you have the ability and the freedom to kind of bro with everybody. But you also know that like when boss man walks in the room and it's time for a staff meeting, we sit up a little straighter, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously it's not the exact same with a coordinator as it is a head coach, but it's different. And I found myself in that inaugural year as a coordinator to where I loved the guys I worked with. I enjoyed their company. I enjoyed those relationships, but I also understood that now there was a difference in the dynamic of our relationship. And I subconsciously was drawn to becoming closer in my relationship with the defensive coordinator because he's obviously experiencing very similar things.
Right.
And it's only heightened when you make that jump to the head coach, to the AD, because yes, you want to have a friendly relationship with your staff. You want them to trust you. You love them and all of those things, but you also have to be their boss. And you have to be able to have those conversations, and you have to understand that because of the potential to have those conversations, they're going to tread a little different around you in certain situations. And that's okay. That comes with the territory. You have to be willing to wear that hat. You have to be willing to still go to sleep at night and understand that it's part of the job and this is what you signed up for. The other part of that, as someone that's been at a coordinator position for, you've got some skin in the game from that level, and you've been with a few different head coaches, the coaching of coaches, the growth of coaches, You don't have to name names. You don't have to call anybody out. But I'm just curious what you felt was like the best push in your professional growth from a head coach that you worked with.
Well, and I'll kind of circle back. So, like the current head coach I'm with now, obviously he was my receiver coach at 19 and 20, and so our relationship is really, really good because tonight, for example, like we had a situation happen, and I was able to go in straight into his office after practice, and basically, hey, bro, like here's how this was handled. Here's how so and so took it. You probably need to go give him a call and talk to him. And he was going to be like, oh, dude, didn't even think about it that way. I appreciate that. To me, that's how it should be as a head coach, right? Now, like I get it, like it's a little harder to do that when your head coach is 40 years older than you. It's a little bit different, but like I think that's huge. And now other coaches I've been with, where they're more CEOs, I think whether you're a CEO coach or more like a Mac Brown, a CEO, or you're somebody else like a Kyle Shanahan, where you're the head coach, but you're calling the plays too, and you're heavily involved. You either one of those, like you still have to remember where you are coaching players. You still have to coach your coaches to your point, and it's so important that you have awareness of like, how and who can you talk to the way that you need to talk to get through the team, in order for optimal growth for your current coaches as well. I think a lot of coaches forget that, and the biggest plus for me being under, I think now 7 different head coaches, is I've been exposed to almost every different style I think you could probably imagine, from the CEO, who's the biggest, philosopher I've ever been around in my life, who's so smart, to a brand new head coach here, who's willing to take feedback, to a head coach and Coach Dilfer, who won a Super Bowl but first year coaching ever, and needs help. And so it's so different. But to your point, all those things have remained the same as far as like, okay, we got to coach our coaches. You got to be open to feedback, so your coaches feel like they can co-collaborate with you. Because at the end of the day, no matter what kind of head coach you are, if you're not open to any of those things, like it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and it's like it's such a hard thing. It's such a hard dynamic there's not a playbook for it, right? And like that's what I meant,
Yeah.
but like there is no total preparation, like, because your personality has to fit that aspect of the job. And everybody's not going to have the same goals and aspirations, and not everybody that gets into the profession, I want to be a coordinator by this age and a head coach by this age, and I want to be at a 5 or 6A by this age. Like, not everybody's going to have that. Like, I've worked with guys that are like, hey man, I love my family, I love this community, I just want to coach ball and I just want to teach math, right? And like you need those guys, like, the whole not too many Chiefs, not enough Indians. Like, you need Indians, like, and that's okay. And being able to identify that, I think that, you brought something up, the CEO head coach, man, I think that's the scariest role for me. Like, when I became the when I became the OC at Salina, I became a walk around OC. Like, I didn't coach a position group, and it scared the crap out of me. Because you want to empower your position coaches, you want to empower their relationships, but I wanted to still continue to foster those relationships with our kids, because if I'm just the guy signaling, or I'm just the guy on the headset, like, it becomes a little bit more robotic, transactional, and it's, that's not why I got into the profession. Like, and so I think that like, even now, being the head coach, being the AD, but still being the play caller, I've had conversations with other young head coaches, and it's like, I don't know if this is something I'll ever give up. Like, if I'm a head coach, like, now obviously you get to a certain level potentially where you start to consider it, and it becomes one of those things where it's like, okay, you got 14 million things on your plate. You got to have the confidence in your staff to delegate some things, and eventually play calling may be one of them. But on the flip side, that's what connects me to the game. And, I don't want to just be a clock manager on Friday nights. Like, I'm sure there's a point in my career where my perception of that changes. But for right now, I don't see my personality being that type where I am a walk around head coach. where I am a CEO head coach. And I don't mean that term derogatory. I mean, you brought up Mac Brown. Mac Brown's pretty good.
Yeah.
He's won a lot of
Decent.
football games, got a national championship. He kind of knows what he's doing. And he was still within that role. I mean, he was still fostering very deep relationships with his players. There's one person that Vince Young always talks about, and it's Mac Brown. Like, and their dynamic and their relationship was huge to Vince's success, to him even coming to Texas, et cetera, et cetera. So the ability to foster those relationships in that dynamic is absolutely still there. I just don't know if I'm scared that I wouldn't be very good at it right now.
Sure.
But have you seen has that impact? You've always been a coordinator position coach. Like it's always been one and the same.
Well, like, I don't know if it was Dan Casey. Somebody recently was saying, like, if you're calling plays and then you get that head job, you should do probably what got you there in the first place. Did you hear that?
I did not, but I agree.
And so like I've been like wrestling with that a lot lately because to me, like I see both sides of it. It's like, well, the calling of the plays is what, let's say you're an OC and that's what got you, skyrocketed or whatever, Sean McVay or something like that, right? But like, yes, the calling of the plays is what made it happen, but like, to me, it's also like, well, you as a person, your work ethic, how you manage people, those are also what got you there. So like, I don't necessarily means that like you have to do that. You know what I mean? Because like, again, I've never been a head coach. And so like my thought was like, okay, well, if I'm a head coach, I've been a coordinator my whole life. Based on that, does that mean I have to be the play caller? I'm like, what? So I'm trying to dive deeper philosophically into that. Like, well, what actually got me to this position? What got me this opportunity? Was it more the work ethic? Was this and that? It wasn't necessarily the play calling. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And one, I think that, speaking from very little experience, I think that to circle back to one of, your boy Dilfer's, one of his pillars, it comes down to your tribe. Are you taking
Right.
your tribe with you, or are you starting a new tribe? Right? Like if I get a head job and it's like, all right, you can bring 8 guys with you. Cool. Well, then I have the ability and the confidence to bring somebody in that I know that I can delegate with great confidence because of the relationship I already have. If I'm starting a new tribe, I've got to build those relationships. I've got to build that trust. I've got to entrench that new coach, new to me coach. I've got to entrench him into my ways, my verbiage, my rhythm, my expectations, my perception of the game, etc. So it all comes down to that dynamic of, am I taking my tribe to a new place or am I building a new tribe? Which
Sure.
both can be wildly successful, but I think it has to dictate how you approach that situation. Because if a first year head coach is he's going somewhere, he only gets to take 2 people with him, and he's going to risk the fact, like, you don't know, maybe the guy that you want to be your OC play caller, you can't make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you end up taking your O-line coach who's never really been involved in any conversations outside of the run game. Right? You still going to make, are you going to make him the play caller? Well, you're probably going to wear that hat for at least another year until you get to a point of confidence down the road. And you got to spend one on your DC. We begrudgingly got to show love to the defense a little bit, but I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
If you take over a 5 or 6A and you're taking, free reign, bring as many guys as you want, well, by gosh, you better be delegating quite a bit because you're getting to bring your guys in. You're going to a small school, or you're moving late in the game. You're moving May or June. You don't really have that option necessarily. It's time to make a little chicken salad, and you got to wear a couple more hats for the next 8 months.
Yeah, no, that's a good point because it really is like situations are situational. So like to your point, to your point, it is one of those things where like, what is the situation? What are my resources? And like, I'm literally thinking about this out loud right now. So like, what are my resources? What's the situation I'm going into? Meaning, is it a situation that I'm about to have to manage a bunch of parents, manage a school, therefore a community? No way I can call plays. You know what I'm saying? Or it's like, oh no, I'm about to walk in this thing where let's just say we're at high school and we're, in Texas, so at a 6A. So I'm just, the athletic coordinator. well, then yeah, like you can probably call the plays and you're gonna be okay. So I guess obviously it does matter. Um, there is no black and white. Like, oh, you call plays and that's what got you here, so you got to keep calling plays. I mean, whatever the situation calls for is what's going to determine that outcome. But um, definitely something I've thought about. As
I mean,
get to
I think the
point.
perfect example of that is you and Dilfer first going up there. Like your first phone call, like he took you up there because of that confidence. You went up there because of that confidence, and there was a lot to do, right? And
Right.
like, I mean, obviously you can elaborate on that, but
Yeah,
that dynamic right there, I think, changed his approach to it because he was able to bring you in y'all's relationship.
sure. No, I mean it. That first year for him, there was no way, even if he wanted to call plays, that he could, because that's why I said what I said earlier. Like he had to do. We literally had to go into the china closet, break every piece of china to find out who was real, who's really in this. Let's go ahead and pop this bubble that we're all in right now in the community and make it look like the real world. And in order to do that and really shake things up, can't do that and like, oh, by the way, let me see, do they match our personnel whenever we go 12 personnel? No way. Like you can't do that. Watch the film, game plan, and then deal with all the the other mess on the side. So now, obviously, as the years went by for him, he got it under control. This thing was rolling, and he was able to call plays. So, yeah, I think it's totally on what's the circumstance that you're in, and then also like to what you said, who are you bringing? It's like, do you foresee? Let's just say 3 years from now, would you ever see yourself where you're currently at, giving up the play call? I know that's a hard question too, because
I know the answer, but I don't want to put it out there in the world, and people will be like, "Well, I'm not going there. He's never going to let me call plays." I think at this level, at where we are, I think it's difficult because I feel like to best utilize the number of coaches I have, that I've got to coach a position on the offensive side, and if I'm going to coach a position, then I'm going to call plays, right? Because if I give that hat away, then and I become a walk around, okay, well now I'm essentially coaching football with I'm coaching with one less coach, but I didn't add a body to the staff, right? Like,
yeah. I get it.
and so I think at a school this size, this situation, I don't think I would. And I'm also, unfortunately, when it comes to the offensive side, like to play calling, I'm a little bit of a control freak where there's a list of people that I trust to call plays. It's a short list,
Sure.
and the trust and the confidence to pass that off to somebody is absolutely there. But if it's not one of those people on that very short list, it's got to be built through a year or two of entrenchment within the program, vernacular, expectation, rhythm. Yeah. Like one of my big things when I started to kind of find my voice within our offense, year 2, year 3, when I was at Salina, was, and like one thing that I really, when I got promoted, that I really invested in was, it wasn't an X's and O's thing. Like I had an idea of who I wanted us to be, and I felt like our personnel was always going to allow us to be a pretty close variation of that. We were going to have years we could throw the ball a little bit better, but we were always going to be big up front. We were always going to identify with the run game, right? But the piece that I really wanted to make sure I invested in was the collaborative aspect with the defensive coordinator. And to me, if somebody's going to take over play calling within my program, they've got to be just as invested into that as I felt like I was, because that communication is vital. Until I truly believe, I mean, look at P&G. I mean, they win a state championship and they're running two-way players at a school with 1,500 kids. Like, and I believe in that model. And I support Coach Joseph in that decision. I think that, you got to put your best 11 on the field. That doesn't mean they got to play all 70 snaps on each side. But, if I got a 4-star receiver that I've seen do some damage at safety, then he needs to get 30 snaps over there. And if you're going to do things like that, you've got to have that collaborative mentality with your defensive coordinator, and whoever is calling plays has got to keep that in mind, because it can't just be, unless we are starting 11 over here and 11 over there, and we feel great that those are the best 11 options, unless we feel totally great about that, right? Then we can't truly just go like, all of us, deep ball guys want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was like, I have very distinct memories at Salina of being on the headset and being like, I'm going to go fast here if we get a first down, if you're good with it. And there were times where the DC would say, I need another first down, or my guys need 2 more minutes, because maybe we scored on a 1-play drive and they got a stop, but it was after 9 plays against a wing T, and his front is just battered and bruised and bleeding everywhere, and they need 2 more minutes of gameplay. So I know that was a really long tangent, but to say that, like, whoever takes the reins from me in that aspect, that's one of the big pieces I want to see, is that investment into the collaboration with the defensive side, because the vast majority of the time you're going to be sharing kids, and they're going to be very integral kids, and we need to make sure that we can play our game and we can do what we do on offense without it just absolutely handicapping our defense.
Correct. That makes sense. I think that's probably what gets overlooked a lot too, is like that co-collaboration with the defense coordinator. Because at the end of the day, spring football, you're just going against each other all day long, and you hate each other. And then, like for us, we scrimmage on Friday, and I told we have a young defensive coach who, like, back to the practice today, was super intense, and everybody was screaming at each other and yelling at each other. Good practice. And one of the young defensive coaches, as we were doing up downs for conditioning, was like, defense. And I was like, hey, I hope you understand, starting Friday, we're on the same team. So like, I hope all those tackles that you just thought you made that entire period were actually tackles, when it comes to Friday. Because, since you guys are just tagging off with your pinky and you're not actually getting your hips to stance, but whatever. It is what it is.
No, and the worst about it is, like, once you reach that point, like, obviously y'all have already started, but in 10 days, we'll be at the same point you're at right now, in the sense that, like, those kids like, when you're trying to do any simulation of good on good, that kid playing corner, he knows the signals, he knows the plays that you're calling on offense, because he's probably the backup. So it's like, oh, well, I can just sit right here at the sticks. It's like, yeah, but that's not how you play cover 3.
Yeah,
but he knows the plays. So
off. We've gotten no screen, like, and it's like, we huddle obviously, but like, and got to have a little more awareness from a quarterback perspective, because we'll get in there and all right, we're gonna go train right, rocket left, X crack. I'm like, well, you just told everybody, including the camera girl up in the stands, what you're doing, and so yeah, whatever.
Yes, I want you to communicate.
When you get me after practice, I'm more fired up.
I love it. Yes, we need to schedule these times every week.
Yeah, it's good.
God. Well, classic pivot. Jordan Love got paid. I don't know if you saw that. He's now the highest paid NFL player ever in quarterback. Got more guaranteed money. He's getting the same salary, but he got more guaranteed money. I texted a couple of my buddies and I was like, you agree? And they're like, well, it's what the market dictates, which is like, it's such a cop-out answer, but it's so true.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a quarterback, you have a program.
And I think that it's like, we talked about this a little bit, but like the Hard Knocks offseason, the whole thing with the New York Giants, like, dude, sometimes and it's getting this way, not to like go down this wormhole again. It's getting this way at the collegiate level, and like hearing some of the numbers that are being thrown out to like we'll get there, but it just kind of stresses me out. Like, I don't know how much that would really entice me. Like, do you want to coach on Sundays in front of 100,000 people and, millions watching on TV? Sure. But like, do you want to have to worry about, your third receiver who's going into the last 2 games of the season and he's 8 catches away from hitting his bonus? And so is he going to block the greatest, or is he going to worry about cutting his route off short to get into that window? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to manage that. Like, we're talking about being a CEO head coach. That's a CEO position coach.
Yep. God, dude, that's a real thing too. Like that's what people don't understand. Like that is real. And it's starting to get real in college too. Obviously in a different aspect, but like with the money, it's so bad. And as a position coach, you're having to worry about so many other things, and then on top of it, oh yeah, make sure that you got the right personnel in or whatever it may be. It's just, yeah, and it's going to trickle down to the high school level at some point until it gets, controlled. So.
Well, and I'm not gonna name the school, and I'm not gonna name the kid, and I'm not gonna but I remember, and this is not a derogatory comment. I have seen no stars. I've seen 2 stars. Terrence Williams was a 2-star. I've seen 3 stars. I've seen guys make their way into the right platform, into the right system, and make it count, and go to the league and be All-Americans and win awards. It's a statistical measurable, and that's what I'm using it as. I remember when 3 stars, that was good. That was good. Like, I wasn't a 3-star, but just comparatively, like, all of their offers weren't necessarily like top tier P5, or I guess what is now called P4. Mm-hmm. But I have been told there is a 3-star athlete who has a few P4s and a few G5 offers, and just received, like, he is now being enticed with $90,000 NIL to a P4.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's 1 year, or if that's like, if it's 90 per, or is it 90 total over 4?
Probably yearly.
But that is just mind blowing to me.
Oh yeah. Like, dude, these, like I said, I was just experiencing it as I left. There is no reason right now to go to the NFL, because you're probably going to get paid more if you stay 1 more year. Like, if you're a dude on your current team, you will get paid more right now than if you went to the NFL. I mean, now let me retract that. Unless you're like about to sign for a few million in the NFL. So like, you drafted first round, early first round, like, well, yeah, go. But besides that, dude, you might be getting paid more, like significantly more. I mean, like whenever I go to the mall and I see players from various colleges, and there's kids are walking out with heavy name brand bags, multiple in their hands. It's like, whoa. Like,
I love that, heavy name brand bags. Not heavy. Big or a lot of them, heavy. That means that whatever they're getting is dense.
I'm just trying to make next month's, paycheck.
Like, I'm just out here trying to keep both kids in daycare, baby. No, and like that, the running joke, like post 2005 Rose Bowl, the running joke about USC, like Reggie Bush, Lindell White, like that was the beginning of it. But like the Joe McKnight era of USC, which, RIP Joe McKnight, was an absolute monster coming out of John Curtis High School in Louisiana. Like, freak.
What an unbelievable highlight tape.
Stupid. But, the running joke when he got to the Jets, when, again, shout out 2010 Hard Knocks, was, that boy took a pay cut to get drafted in the 4th round. And, that was all like hush hush, like under the table suitcases left at like no name apartment complexes in downtown LA. Yep. I'm not telling anything that anybody doesn't already know, so don't try and call me a whistleblower. But like that was way before any of that. And now, that's the norm. Matt Rule had an interview at the end of spring and was like, "You guys realize a transfer portal quarterback costs $1 million?" Like, and that's just a flat line, like, pleasure doing business with you. And I'm trying to get you to dispel a little bit more information. That was my leading story, but like, though, it's astronomical to me. I mean, it's cool. Like, I would have loved to make $90,000 a year. I don't think they were paying that to walk-on receivers, but hey, you never know. Guy can dream. But
yeah, I can say this: there's teams in the SEC that you could be the worst player on the team, and you're getting $20,000. Like the worst player of the team. And then to Matt Rule's point, that is true in the SEC. It was $1 million. Like, yeah. And there was some dudes that turned down like 1.1 because they're getting more. And like, and it's not like, hey, 1.1 million for 4 years. No, like that's what you're getting this year. Like, so yeah, that's what, like, the money was just ridiculous. And you're not talking to, I said this before, you're not talking to the kids. You're talking for those big time guys. You're talking to their agents now, and that's all you're talking to. And so, it's no longer about facilities. It's all about the money. What are you paying me? They're offering me this. And so the money that you're talking about it's very true and more.
Dude, which brings me up that again, talking about like pre NIL, like early to mid 2000s NCAA, like that was a world that, like, dude, that was the, like, so this is the like legalized Wild West. That was just the Wild West. Like when you talk about the Reggie Bush, like, and then into Joe McKnight, and then like at the same time on the other coastline, you look at Miami, like, I don't know, I can't remember his name, and which doesn't go great for like conversation, but like the dude that was behind like the U Part 2, and like that one guy that was running all that money through the Miami football team, he went on a podcast and was like, I'm the reason Devin Hester touched the ball, because I can't remember who the head coach was. He said, I told him he touches the ball or the money stops, like the fountain of cash stops. And like, I don't think that that's the kind of power that's associated with it now, but it can't be that far off. Like, if I got to go get at this 4-star, 5-star corner, and I need, $250,000, $300,000 from you to secure it, like, I basically got to give you the world, because I need, we got to be able to write that check. And it's a dangerous version of the game to live in. And
yeah, like dude, you got to think, like, I know, I'm not going to say names. There's a guy that lives here in Nashville that, he's a heavy donor for an SEC program, has been for a long time, donates about $1 million a year. And there's reason why he donates. And there's been word that, like, it's becoming temporary now. Point being, it's like, okay, you're taking that money as, this SEC program, and let's just say you offer this much money to this kid. Well, that money's not permanent. That's the problem with this whole thing. Is like, you don't know if that money is going to, like, keep coming year after year after year. You're just hoping. And so you could sit there and tell a kid, a 5-star, you're going to get, like the average. Like, let's say, some of the numbers that we were hearing, from some of these 5-star kids are, $500,000-$600,000, whatever. Hey, we're going to get this for 4 years. Come here. It's like, you don't know that, because like you could give that to him, but now you're stripping money from somebody else because you're not getting like an exact, just like in the NFL, hey, $240 million, that's what you're getting. You don't have a budget. So you're just hoping that so-and-so down the road here continues to donate that money, because we're going to just keep adding that into our budget, and it's, that's the influx we're going to get. It's like, you don't know that. He could get pissed off because you're not playing so-and-so, because he knows so-and-so at the school. You ain't playing anymore. And now he's pulling the money. Well, now you're having to pull the money from some kid. And it's just like, that's the problem with it all.
And that, like, now you're starting to, like, NIL becomes like partial scholarships at Division IIs, right? Yeah. Like, or like partial scholarships in other Division I sports. Like, hey, well, I know we told you were going to get 400 each year, but like, if you take your 400, we're not going to have enough to sign this guy that we need to be our quarterback. So if you go down to 200 and these guys go down to this, then we'll have enough. We can pay this guy. And now we got a chance to go win a conference championship. And you're like, or you could just keep your word. That would be cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
or you have dirty agents that they're making deals with the coaches because they're going to get 5%. And so they're not telling the kids that they're representing. They're actually going to tell the coach they're about to call to increase the number because they want to get more money. That's real too. Like, and dude, it's like,
what a world, what a football world we live in.
Yeah. It's sickening.
Well, we don't, just to clarify, wrap this thing up, we don't hate the NCAA. We don't hate the game of college football. We do love it. We just want to see it be a little bit more pure.
Right.
I do want to make sure and say this before we sign off. As you can see behind him, the sun is setting. TK is in mid-season form already. I will be not far behind him starting next week. We're not going anywhere. We're going to do our best to stay here and keep hanging out with y'all. So, stay tuned, spread the word, send it to somebody. Make sure you like, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, everything that he says. And, we appreciate it. And good luck Friday in the scrimmage.
Thanks, man.
I'm going to try and enjoy my last free weekend. Look for me on Joe Rogan's live special on Netflix. I'm going to try and wear a bright shirt so y'all can see me.
Love it. Thank you, guys.